Welcome to another production by the Millennial Mechanical Therapist. Your hosts, Dr. Joseph Gravino and Dr. Clay Case, are two physical therapists trying to treat health issues mechanically. Listen further for patient cases, guest videos, advantages and disadvantages of the way they practice, and much more. Thanks for tuning in today. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and at our website. We hope that you learn a lot from watching this video and you come back for more. Hey everyone, I am the Millennial Mechanical Therapist, and today I want to kind of keep going on the track we've been going for the last week and a half or so, talking about really exhausting repeated movement exams, not fearing flexion, and then using what we kind of dove into so far this week in terms of migraine disorders. So one of the patient cases that I saw recently that I want to talk about is a gentleman who was in his mid-40s who came in with a suboccipital headache that at times would wrap around the top of his head, coming to just about the top part. He very rarely had temporal headaches and infrequently had kind of forehead pain. He said that it has been there for a few months and it doesn't go away very much, if at all. So he's a big burly guy. He's a construction worker, runs his own kind of contracting company and things like that. So he can obviously deal with some pain and things like that, but this finally got to the point where it pushed him to seek some help. When he came into the office, we wanted to figure out where this headache was coming from, what the real origin was from. And as we went through, we kind of screened out some red flag pathology, things like that, and he didn't have any medical history of hypertension, any dizziness, anything along those lines that would maybe indicate something a little bit more sinister going on. He just stated that he's had this headache for a while and he can't seem to get rid of it. So what we did is we continued on with the mechanical assessment going through, and he had some loss in range of motion. He was pretty restricted in his rotations, but everything else was decent. His retraction, however, was also pretty limited. So rotation and retraction, he was pretty stiff in those motions. It turns out, as we go through the exam with him, though, he starts responding to flexion really well. At first, we start doing some protrusion, and suddenly he goes, well, my headache's starting to go away a little bit. Okay. As we keep going, I end up having him into a flex position, one arm pulling down, giving himself some overpressure. As he does a set of 12 of that, he reduces his headache from a subjective numerical rating scale pain level of 7 down to a 2. And that was a very rapid change for him and something that he hadn't experienced in a long time. So I said, go home, go play with this for a bit, and let's see what we can get out of that. So the next time he comes in, he goes, I've got it down to that level 2, but I haven't really been able to get any farther than that. Although I have had times where I've been pain-free, which is another new thing. So whenever he has that too, he tends to have difficulty really abolishing it, but he notes that when he's lying down or positions like that, he's been able to get it to be pain-free. He continues to report that the worst time is when he's driving. So we continued through it and we did a little reassessment of the mechanical assessment, and going through that, instead of having him go with one hand pulling, I ended up having him go with both. And with that extra pressure, we actually abolished it in clinic that day. After that appointment, his work kind of caught up with him and he was not able to follow up with me. However, 2 weeks after that appointment, I gave him a phone call and followed up through that, and he said that he's been able to manage it really well. He said he hasn't had as much pain recently and he's really happy with his results. So on the phone, I tried to convince him a little bit to come back and see if we can get rid of that problem, but he said that he was happy with it and his work schedule is just really crazy right now, so he's good with what he's got. I educated him on going back to his physician if he wants to return or if he thinks he needs anything else, but I was really happy that we could make that change to make it at least something that he's happy with and tolerable with. One of the recent things that came out of the APTA, and it was at one of the conferences, and forgive me, I forgot which part it was. It might have been next, but I can't truly remember. The keynote speaker was talking about nociception in pain, and he brought up this concept that our job is not necessarily to eliminate pain, but to eliminate suffering. So this was another case where that struck true to me, that this situation for this gentleman, we didn't eliminate his pain, but he was happy enough, and it sounded like we eliminated a lot of his suffering. So I think that's another important thing we can kind of take into consideration when we're dealing with some folks with partial responses and things like that with the mechanical assessment. As we've been talking about for those last week and a half or 2 weeks or so, really try to exhaust that repeated movement exam and see if you can get down to something that has a directional preference there. With this gentleman, we had to go through a series of a few movements, and it was actually a movement that is thought to be maybe vulnerable to some people or detrimental. And it turns out that that's what abolished his pain. As always, guys, you want to move early, you want to move often, and make sure everybody's moving to end range, just like that guy. That's where the magic happens. We'll see you guys next time.